According to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, more than 120 million people worldwide are forcibly displaced. Due to this, migration became a security threat rather than a humanitarian issue. Hi everyone, I'm Thania Ashalina Putri, an undergraduate international relations student. For the next 3 to 7 minutes, I will be discussing what I believe is one of the most critical issues in international migration today, which I believe to be the growing number of forcibly displaced people and the widening gap in international protection. This issue will be analyzed using the securitization theory, a theory developed by the Copenhagen School. International migration has always existed throughout history. This movement of people across national borders is usually driven by economic and educational opportunities or forced displacement due to conflict and climate change. Currently, more people have resided in a nation than their birthplace. The Population Division of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs reports that there were 304 million foreign migrants worldwide in 2024. Migration today is becoming increasingly complex. In some cases, people affected by conflicts have no choice other than to migrate. At the same time, climate change has emerged as an additional driver of displacement through issues such as rising sea levels, continuous drought, and extreme weather events. Despite the growing humanitarian need, many destination countries have adopted increasingly restrictive migration policies. Border controls have been tightened, asylum procedures have become more difficult, and migration has become a highly politicized issue. Consequently, while the number of displaced people continues to rise, international protection has not expanded at the same time. To better understand this issue, this analysis uses securitization theory, developed by the Copenhagen School. The Copenhagen School created the term securitization to describe the process by which governments and other powerful players recognize a certain occurrence as an existential threat and justify the adoption of drastic measures to counter it. The theory therefore argues that security threats are not simply objective realities. Migration illustrates this process clearly. In many countries, migrants and refugees are portrayed as threats to national security. Once migration is framed this way, governments are able to justify exceptional policies such as stricter border enforcement and deportation measures. Securitization theory therefore helps explain why migration governance often prioritizes state security over humanitarian protection. The international community has established several mechanisms to manage migration. At the global level, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees provides humanitarian assistance, legal protection, and refugee resettlement programs, while the International Organization for Migration supports migration management and international cooperation. In addition, the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol remain the primary legal framework for protecting refugees. These agreements establish important principles, including non-refoulement, which prohibits states from returning individuals to places where they may face persecution. However, despite these governance mechanisms, significant challenges remain. The first obstacle is state sovereignty. Every state retains the authority to decide who may enter its territory, limiting the ability of international organizations to enforce refugee protection. The second obstacle is unequal burden sharing. Developing countries continue to host the majority of the world's refugees despite having fewer financial and institutional resources than wealthier states. A third challenge is the increasing politicization of migration. Domestic and political pressures often encourage governments to prioritize border security over humanitarian responsibilities. Finally, current international refugee law does not adequately protect people displaced by climate change, creating an important legal gap that is becoming increasingly relevant. In conclusion, the growing mismatch between rising forced displacement and insufficient international protection represents one of the most critical issues in international migration today. Through the lens of securitization theory, it becomes evident that migration policies are shaped not only by migration itself, but also by how political actors frame migration as a security issue. Although international organizations and legal frameworks have made important contributions to migration governance, their effectiveness continues to be constrained by state sovereignty, unequal responsibility sharing, domestic political interests, and outdated legal protections. Addressing these challenges will require strong international cooperation, fair burden sharing, and migration policies that balance legitimate security concerns with the protection of human rights. And that's all for my video. Thank you so much.